I'm going to start with color and then mix in some product trends, and then from there I'm going to go into some things I see in new home design, some features that are out there emerging. When was the last time that you saw gray as a popular color in this country? Do you remember? Do you remember what was happening? It was the S&L crisis. It was back in the late 80s, early 90s. Gray became a really popular color. I know, I had a gray kitchen. I had gray countertops. I had gray appliances. Why did we go to gray? We were depressed. Well, guess what? 2008 happened and we got depressed again. We really did. And after 2008, we moved on and had the election, and so 50% of us are still depressed. The other 50% of us are trying to move on. We know that that means California and New York are still depressed, but the rest of us are trying to go on. This is Sherwin-Williams Color of the Year. This is decidedly a non-gray color. It's called poised taupe. Why it's poised, I don't know. It could be slouching taupe, but it's taupe. We're moving away from the gray. Now, the takeaway to that isn't that your clients aren't going to still elect to do gray. You're going to have a lot of people that haven't had it, want it. Gray is going to hang in there for a while, but I'm doing specifications on 2 $1 million plus houses, and I'm not painting them gray. And there's a reason, because I think you'll see us moving beyond that. In this particular slide you see, we're seeing a lot of glazing and a lot of off-white cabinets, not necessarily so white. There was a builder study last year that said only 34% of the cabinets installed in new houses were white, which kind of surprised me actually. What worried me is I think 14% said other, so maybe 14% were off-white, but it's still a popular trend, but we're seeing a lot of the glazing, and we're seeing some two colors. This has been going on now for years, but it's continuing. It's kind of difficult to see in this particular slide, but there's an inner island and an outer island. If you look at the inner island, you can see that it's stained dark, while the outer island and the perimeter of the kitchen are all painted. Another couple of things to note, not that it's on the same vein, but the flat, very wide, one-level island is definitely an in, and what I call pendant punctuation. We can't seem to do islands without punctuating them with pendants. So those are all very big trends. This is a kitchen we did in Bryan, Texas recently. And the wood on that previous kitchen, you'll notice, was dark, was really dark. We're getting away from some of the super dark flooring. Starting to see some lighter flooring. We're certainly getting away, or at least I'm trying to get away from distressed wood. How many people are still doing distressed? There's a little of it, but it's starting to finally see a slow and painful death. But because of this light wood trend, people are again comparing this to the 90s. The difference is this is more of a weathered wood. It's not the blonde or the bleached or those hideous wood tones we did back then. And you'll note that the plank size, we're not doing these little 2.5, 3-inch planks. The plank size on these particular, I think these are either 6 or 8 inches wide. So sometimes bigger really is better. Okay, I'll leave it at that. And then today, you almost have to tap on that wood look to tell if it's really wood. This is actually tile that looks like wood. And you would think, since it looks like hickory, hickory's got so much variation that it would be very difficult to make the tile look like hickory, but I think they did a really, really good job. Again, it's very deceiving in the materials, and it's all about being able to take care of it. The nice thing about the wood look tile is if you have a dog, and most of us have some kind of pets, you know, dogs can scratch, the dog claws can scratch the wood. This tile can really take an absolute brutal beating and not show any wear. I'm actually using it in a clubhouse in Arlington. Do you guys know the Viridian project? Anybody familiar with Viridian? It's a 2300 master plan. We're doing their 12,000 foot clubhouse, and they really wanted wood, and I kept saying, but you've got water over there and you've got kids and all this kind of stuff. So we did not go with wood, we went with wood look tile, and people are having a hard time telling the difference. Another 90s trend that is creeping back, and I say creeping back, I've seen it in quite a few houses, is wallpaper. And I don't mean, like our formula in the 90s was, oh my Lord, every bathroom had a wallpaper, every kitchen had a wallpaper and a border. Dining room formula was either wallpaper above the chair rail, wallpaper below the chair rail. Wallpaper was everywhere. Now it's being used very, very judiciously. like if you want a very feminine space, and that's what this particular room is. In fact, this is a 90s picture. This was her bathroom. They had his and her master bathrooms. So this was just hers. Another trend, I don't know how well this is showing up. This is the trend of the wet room. Have you guys seen this? You put the shower on one end and the tub inside the other. I will say personally, it is not my preference. Interestingly enough, House says it's about a 50-50 deal. If it was me building this house, I would save the money on the glass and put the money in the plumbing fixtures. I would have put maybe the 3 body sprayers or something that makes it a little sexier for the shower experience. A lot of women look at this and think there's going to be mold, mildew, it's going to stay moist, and so in our minds it becomes a maintenance nightmare. So again, I would opt for the human car wash and not this. Brick is an element we used in the 90s. This is a brick tile. This particular one was recently introduced by Marazzi. It comes, I think, in 6 different colorways, and it's been very, very well received in popularity. In fact, we just did a house in Rough Creek, and if you know where Rough Creek is, it's way the heck out there. We did a house, and I did this exact brick in the kitchen all the way to the ceiling, and the house sold so fast I never got to get back in and get pictures of it. So it's very popular. As for plumbing fixtures, again, the ones that aren't fabulous are my personal pictures. You can still see though, in the tub, you can tell that this is oil rub bronze, and you can see the oil rub bronze in the shower heads. This is really a beautiful bathroom. It just didn't photograph as well as I had hoped. Texas, I have been told by the plumbing representatives, is really the only state just clinging to that oil rub bronze. I mean, we're like the last vestige. Maybe it's because some of the more rustic ranch look, it blends in better with that, but it's really kind of dying a death everywhere else. Satin nickel has been the dominant plumbing and lighting choice for the past couple of years, and especially in other places. Ironically, in the 90s, we only had 3 major choices. We had polished brass, antique brass, or chrome. And now the metal finishes have they're crazy. I mean, they're off the chart. New Venetian bronze, antique nickel, satin copper. I don't know what these people are smoking to name these things, but they're just all over the lot. And then they're still coming out with new ones. This is Brizo's new edition. It's black, and I opted for the picture with the black and the nickel together. I think it's a prettier one. But the issue becomes from a design standpoint, you've got all these finishes. What are you matching it with when you're doing your toilet accessories? Unless the manufacturers make the toilet accessories, the toilet paper holders and the paper towel hold, all that stuff, if they don't make it, then it's really hard to use these fixtures. So I think they've gotten smart and they're starting to make all those things now. Believe it or not, all of the people in the design world are saying gold is going to make a comeback, and so is, you got it, brass, shiny brass. Now, I'm not sure how quickly it's going to make that comeback. The term usually is somewhere between 10 to 15 years for it to die and then come back. I'm actually redesigning a house in Colleyville, and she's like, please tell me I don't have to change all my fixtures. They are all polished brass. And I'm saying, well, if you give it another year or so, you're probably going to be right in there. I mean, so it is coming back around, believe it or not. Now, this is a slide I took. Can you see what it says in the middle? It says cashmere pearl. In terms of finishes, we used to only have a couple of paint finishes. I mean, we had flat, we had eggshell, it wasn't even called eggshell back then, I forgot what we called it, and then we had semi-gloss and gloss. On the new Sherwin-Williams gloss indicator for shine, there are 9 different layers of gloss. That's what this came off of. I just stopped to visit with the Kelly Moore guys to see how many they had, and they have 6. But they said their 6 is a tighter range. Of course, they're going to say they're better, but anyway, we've just got more choices in absolutely everything in the building industry than we've ever had before. And while we're talking about finishes, I think the consumer got really smart and they said, you know, I'm tired of cleaning these shiny stainless refrigerators from, you know, little fingerprints and smudges. So this is GE's new lineup. They have 3 new additions. They've got black stainless is what they call it, and the 2 grays. I think those are interesting. And what's really ironic is they're introducing these finishes in the face of what happened last year, which was 79% of the appliances delivered to new homes were shiny stainless steel. So here's Decor's new finish. They call it graphite stainless. So now even for the companies that aren't going to have completely new finishes, what they're going to have is a new texture. I think you'll see them come up with some kind of matte finish that will help cover the fingerprints. Even if it's a stainless, it'll be a matte stainless. So I'm saying shine is on the decline and matte's really on the rise. And Tammy, don't you wear your stilettos when you cook? I mean, I always wear my stilettos. How about you ladies? Don't you wear your stilettos? It's kind of ridiculous. Oh well. Anyway, while we're on the subject of appliances, this is, to me, it's kind of an anomaly. The rise of the steam oven has been kind of the latest rage in cooking. Now, I personally don't know that the consumer is ready to give up the real estate for an appliance that most of them do not know how to use. And most consumers, in my experience, don't read the directions either, especially you guys. We know you don't read directions, but they're coupling it with the convection oven, trying to push these things. That's Bosch's. And then here we have Wolf's version. Again, it says it's unplumbed. Do you know what that means? It's like a Mr. Coffee. You have to put water in it every so often. So if you're going to roast a whatever in there for 3 hours, you can't just go to the grocery store. You've got to go put water in it every so often, to the tune of about $4,300. It won't do that. Now, does anybody have one? If I'm dissing something somebody likes, tell me why I'm missing the point. But I can't see spending that kind of money or real estate in my kitchen for something. But here's the granddaddy of them all. Gaggenau is making me gag on the price. Holy moly, this thing's $8,000 and it's 1.7 cubic feet. That is a small microwave size. But for that money, at least with Gaggenau's, it's self-cleaning and it's plumbed. You don't have to change the water. Isn't that awesome? For $8,000, personally, I think it should walk the dog and take out the garbage. That'd be my plan. And then this appliance trend is, I think, really a great idea. This is modular refrigeration. Everybody's got a different name for it. I think Thermador calls theirs columns, but it's modular refrigeration. So you could pick, for example, 2 30-inch refrigerators for your kitchen. So you could have 60 inches of pure refrigeration. You could pick 30 inches of refrigeration in a wine column. You could pick 30 inches of freezer. The choices are absolutely limitless. It's really good. And we've also done some very high-end models in condo buildings, and they had 48-inch refrigerators, and I can tell you, getting those big puppies up in a service elevator is a bear. So I don't know if that helped drive some of the design theory behind this, but I know it'll help in those markets. And what's interesting to me is Decor has come out with one. Now get this, Decor's new modular refrigerators have cameras in them that are Wi-Fi enabled, so you can call your refrigerator if you're at the grocery store and see if you need to buy eggs. You can call it and just take a peek around your refrigerator. Oh, only got 2 eggs, need to buy eggs. How Jetson-esque. Anyway, so we've got appliances, they're getting smart and very connected, but what about people like me who have trouble with a remote control? I can't even operate my remote half the time, and now we're going to have the appliances that are smarter than we are. So I'm saying you need to plan to see the collision of the smart appliance wave and the silver tsunami. You know what the silver tsunami is, right? Yeah, I am one. Anyway, it's going to be interesting. So some say that granite is on the wane, and I just talked to the Caesar stone guy, and I'll tell you what he said. It was pretty interesting. In new houses, granite was 64% of the desired countertops and kitchens last year. He said in remodels, it's 62% Caesar stone or quartz, which I thought was very fascinating. But right now, I don't think you're going to see granite on the decline in new homes anytime soon. If given the option, people are opting for the real McCoy. And yes, engineered stone and engineered counters really is on the rise, and they're doing a lot more surface colors and material, that look more realistic. But this is my personal kind of beef, I guess, until it gets closer to the price of granite. I'm just not sure you're going to see it take over the new home market. You know, when granite's already an upgrade for most builders, people will opt for that. But when you start telling them quartz or quartzite or something, that upgrade really adds up, and they're still going for the real McCoy. And this is one of those materials that's gone to a larger format. You can see how big the format, just like the wood planks I mentioned earlier, everything is going to a bigger and bigger format. Now, in something like this, I can see in a contemporary application where you don't want to have a seam, it makes all kinds of sense. Also, for those people who like gray, the engineered material makes a whole lot of sense, because if you're going to put real material in your kitchen in gray, you're probably putting in marble, and marble sure doesn't perform in a kitchen application. You have to seal the snot out of it and then seal it again. I have a friend who actually put it in her house in Mira Vista, and the first party she had, somebody spilled red wine on it. It's not coming out, so it's a bad thing. Also, in the large format, talking about large formats, that same house we're doing in Colleyville, we're taking out and we're putting in 2-foot by 4-foot tile. Now, it's a ginormous house, it can handle it. But I was in the tile store last week asking them about their large format tile, and he told me they are coming out with tile that is 6 feet. 6 feet. I mean, I just think aesthetically, with the size of most of the houses we deal in, I don't know where you're going to have the space. It's going to look chopped up, but right now, I'm telling you, bigger really is better. So this is an image of an ugly 90s kitchen. What happened with old pickled cabinets, and if you pickled over pine, it turned yellow. If you pickled over red oak, it turned pink. But if you tear all this out, that's what you can get. This was a real remodel. In fact, the sink that you saw in the first one's all the way to the windows on the right. We gutted this, and I show you this for a couple of reasons. One is she actually is in that trend. That is quartz in the kitchen. But she kind of bucked the new home trend in that she did 2 different levels, which we normally don't do. Now everybody's doing a single level, but since we had torn out a wall between the family room and the kitchen, she wanted the higher countertop to hide the second sink. So, and then this one also begs back to the pendant punctuation. I just think it's hilarious that everybody is doing pendants. When I first started in this business, you had Williamsburg light fixtures. Now you've got as many light fixtures as you have those plumbing fixtures I showed you earlier. In fact, one of the remodels we did last year, she picked a dining room chandelier that I swear, it looked like a paper Chinese lantern with holes poked in it. It was the most hideous, god-awful thing I'd ever seen. And she spent a lot of money on it, but loved it. So it's all about personal preferences. So I thought this particular slide, which image I took out of the Texas Builder magazine, I thought that tagline at the bottom was really interesting. Buyers looking for bigger homes with more options, because I had written in this, it's all about individual choices and personal tastes. And that is just so true. And the last product I'm going to touch on is the throne. But no, I couldn't put a picture of a toilet up here. I'm sorry, I just couldn't do it. So we're actually seeing some improvements in toilets over the years. The European two flushers have finally made it over here. And Toto, believe it or not, has elevated the lowly toilet to an outright spa experience. Have any of you guys seen this thing? It actually came out in 1980, but they've made a lot of improvements to it. It's called the washlet. And the washlet learns who you are, and it senses your activity and will adjust itself accordingly. It will wash and blow you dry. It also is self-cleaning. It has an aroma thing. It has lights that come on, lights, action, flush, something. Anyway, we've only installed a couple in remodels, and actually, ironically, they were both doctors, and we have 2 in planning stage, and one of them's a doctor and one's an engineer. But it really is a very interesting new kind of toilet thing. Okay, let's get off of that crappy topic and shift gears. Design themes. Design themes come and go, and a lot of them seem to kind of merge together. Gone is the shabby chic and the eclectic, and hopefully, you know, that mirrored furniture is kind of a Art Deco wannabe stuff. Hopefully that's gone too. But so now we've got coastal, beachy, which it kind of lends into some of the shabby chic because it's characterized by these aqueous colors, a lot of weathered wood, white accents, but back to 2008 when we were depressed. Think about it. This color scheme really came into its own at that point in time. Why? We were in a very stressful, distressed period as a country, and this is a very calming, soothing color scheme. So that's how we responded. And then there's a bit of overlap between kind of the beach and this whole farmhouse thing. Farmhouse, obviously, with shiplap, some of the weathered finishes, chalkboard, some of the corrugated metals. I don't know that we see this going away anytime soon, because I don't see them going away anytime soon. Do you? The other thing we've seen a bit of is mid-century modern, and I'll attribute that to younger people buying homes from the 50s and 60s and trying to kind of stay true to them. This is predominantly an urban infill phenomenon, I think, where they're trying to recreate kind of that whole Rat Pack era look. But oddly saying that, I judged the Hood County parade of homes, and there's a woman builder, and I don't know her name, built a mid-century modern home for the Hood County parade. It was over $1 million and it had sold. But the details and the level of execution of those details, it was absolutely perfect. It's not something I'm suggesting you run out and build tomorrow. It's kind of a very specialized market, but it is definitely there. And in all my years of doing this, I have never seen people buy as modern furnishings and accessories as they're buying now. And part of that is to kind of mix that whole traditional modern becomes transitional. So we're seeing a big shift in consumer attitudes about furnishings that, again, I've been doing this over 30 years. It's the first major shift, I would say, towards modern that I've ever really experienced. And switching now to the home themselves, I have argued with the NAHB economists for years that the homes would continue to get bigger, and they kept saying no, they were going to get smaller. Well, for 20 years I was right. Last year they actually got a little bit smaller, but I honestly think it's a fluke in what got financed. I mean, to get a big home financed right now is extremely difficult. It's a lot easier to get production homes of more, modest sizes financed. And then the other thing I attribute that to, the reason I still think they're going to get big, is you take this buyer and they're going to downsize. They're going to downsize to 6,000 or 7,000 feet. They're not going to downsize. This is a 16,000 foot house. They might lose the indoor basketball court or maybe the wine grotto, but they're not going to get too small, and they've got the money. They don't have to. And the percentage inside the home that the kitchen comprises has continued to get bigger over the years. This is actually the kitchen in that house I just showed you. We built this house, I don't know how many years ago. It's actually got 3 kitchens. It's got an upstairs outside kitchen and a downstairs grotto kitchen by the pool, and then this is the real kitchen. And the island sizes have just gotten humongous. Have you guys seen some of these islands? I saw an island in one of the shows I was judging. I swear it would take a mop to get to the middle of it. You couldn't reach it. Either that or you'd have a lowland gorilla with a reach of 5 feet. I mean, it was just ginormous. So the other thing is the eat-in kitchen has become absolutely the norm. This is the stable thing that everybody is looking for. They want to be able to eat in their kitchen because we're always eating on the run. So because of that, the line between the family room and the kitchen has virtually disappeared. We used to at least have a case opening, we had something, but now it's those 2 spaces just run into each other completely. What is interesting is everybody predicted the demise of the dining room, and we haven't really seen the dining room go away. We've seen 2 eating rooms go away. The first one's going to be in the kitchen, and the second one may be an option, either a formal dining or a very large breakfast room. So like in this particular home, this is a very large breakfast room. You see that piece of furniture right there? That could have been a china cabinet. This table would actually take a leaf. It's seated for 6, but it could easily seat 10 in this kitchen. The other thing I really like, I don't know if you can see the detail, is the stone on the front of the island. But few people are doing less than 1 eating area. So I would just say the trend is towards picking one or the other, either the breakfast room or the dining room and then the kitchen. So this table will seat a big crowd, just maybe not quite that big of a crowd. That might be a little overkill. So what I would think we would say is flexibility is absolutely the key, and the flex space that we've seen grow in the past number of years provides options for that personalization. Now, I have seen builders do, I'm just going to call it stupid flex space. So for example, if you could imagine walking in and there would be an opening just before this stairway to the left, they would say, oh, it's an optional study or a dining room. But you would have to walk half a mile back to the kitchen. It doesn't make sense. A woman wouldn't opt for a dining room that's so far removed from the kitchen. So I do think that flex space is important, but I think we need to rethink where we're putting it and what we're calling it. This, for example, I think was some of the best flex space I have ever seen. This was a Toll Brothers model. I judged their Prism Awards this year. I took this, so again, it's one of my crummy pictures. It was an optional wine room between the kitchen and what could be either a dining room or a study. This space could be used multitudes of different ways. If you did the dining room option, you could make this just a fabulous butler's pantry. If you wanted a bigger pantry in the kitchen, you could cut this space in half, have a pantry in the kitchen and a big closet for the study. So this was some of the best use of flex space I think I've ever seen. Really, really user-friendly and made good sense. And the rise of the wine room, I just can't stress enough. I mean, everywhere at the Builders Show in Florida. Did you guys get to go to IBS in Florida? Did you? Every model they had, every place you went has some kind of contained wine room, and every custom house we're doing right now has some kind of wine room. We're trying to do a downsizing for some people, but they keep adding space into the house, and one of the spaces they added, because they never had it, was a wine room. Their house is going to downsize from 10,000 feet to, or about 11,000 feet to 5,600, and that's about as small as we're going to be able to go. So again, those baby boomers downsizing aren't really downsizing. And pantries, I think pantries are going to continue to grow. As the need for counter space grows, the pantry is going to grow. Why do I say that? You've got, in most houses now, you have multiple people cooking. The mom, that day is gone. She is not in the kitchen by herself. Most of us have 2 people in the kitchen, sometimes 3. And as that need for elbow space increases, then you don't want to take up your counter space and use it for an old-fashioned appliance garage. I think the appliance garage is pretty much, I think the appliance garage is dead. I'll say it. You can quote me. It's on video. So the appliance garage has moved into the pantry, and I think that's a really good place for it. The other thing we've seen a lot in pantries, and I have this myself, although I copied somebody else, I have to admit it. I have a big cart, because one of my hobbies is I do a lot of canning and that kind of thing, but I also make bacon. I cure my own bacon. And that slicer for that bacon weighs probably about 110 pounds. So it's on a cart that has locks on it. I can pull it out, use it, and then put it back. I have a friend who bakes cookies and cupcakes. She's got a whole baking center on a cart, and it just slides in and out of her pantry. It's fabulous use of that space. And I'm happy to say that the stupid desk in the kitchen is dead. Dead, overdone, overdone. What did we ever do with those anyway? We threw a bunch of bills on them. You got so much clutter. They had the paper, they had the kids' homework. It never got used. Mom never sat down and menu planned. It just got used to collect junk. And so now at least we're taking space in the utility room and we're expanding it, and we're doing more intelligent, like craft space with the utility. So you could actually do your laundry, wrap presents, do stuff all in a space. I took these pictures in a model in Houston. I actually have this same space. I call it my craft space. My husband calls it my crap space. So just think of that junked up desk on steroids. That's kind of what my space looks like. But I spend more time in that space probably than any other room in the house, and I just think it's fabulous. The other thing we're seeing is the need of space for the game room separated from a media room. Takes a lot of square footage, a whole lot of square footage. So instead of having a completely separate game room and a completely separate expensive media room, I'm starting to see a lot of models where they've put them together. You have the media and the game room space concatenated. Some of them with this separation where the media part's down lower. Fort Worth, Texas Magazine, Show House last year had a fabulous one, but I didn't get a picture of it. This is actually a John Huston model in Arlington. Again, I think this is an intelligent use of space, and it's how we live. Most people don't want to go in a media room and close the door and be in there by themselves watching a movie. If somebody else is in the house having a cocktail, playing pool, we all want to be together, and this type of space encourages that activity. And finally, we've watched the integration of the indoor and the outdoor spaces for years, and I think this trend is going to completely continue, especially with the use of things. This says executive screens. I have phantom screens on a portion of our house. I know there are other brands, and then also the collapsible window walls. Those, when we first priced them, those collapsible glass window walls were hideously expensive, and they've come way down, dramatically down in price, and with the price decrease, there's an increase in the use of them. And finally, I've seen outdoor rooms that are starting to migrate away from the house. Now, this is kind of contrary to what I was just talking about integrating the way we live, but as we have more grandchildren in the houses and we've got maybe a mother-in-law or somebody in the house, sometimes dad wants to get away and go watch a football game in peace and quiet, and this separate little space allows them to do it. It really is I really honestly believe these are kind of detached man caves. they're away from the house but completely usable. The ones we've seen have, like you can see, this one has a television, it's got a wet bar, it's got pretty much everything you could think of to go sit out there and have some solitude away from it. And so that's pretty much what I've seen for the market during the past couple of years. I appreciate you guys being here. Well, again, thank you for coming. I hope you have a great show. Enjoy your day. Thank you.